Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Event Tech Live 2021 and the final session of day one already. Hopefully you've enjoyed some of the previous sessions and have been able to join us earlier on. If you want to let us know just what you think of them, have you enjoyed some of our fantastic speakers today? You can get involved with the hashtag ETL21, share it on the socials, and let's bring more of our Event Tech community together and be part of the rest of the week. But now it's time for our final session of the day, self-service and subscription software. I know I've seen a personal rise in the popularity of subscription models and subscription services over the past few months, but does it work for events? Well, you're about to find out just that, ladies and gents. Yes, what part of subscription software and services do work for events? And to discuss this, we have a whole fantastic panel of people. So please welcome Abby Cannons, Joe Atkinson, Rachel Stefan, and Nick Westerman. Hello, everyone. How are we all doing?
Great, thanks.
We're doing
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a very excitable panel here. I can see you're ready and raring to go. So without further ado, take it away for the final session of the day.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session about self-service software and events. My name's Joe Atkinson. I'm the co-founder of Lineup Ninja. So we make speaker management software for primarily for expos and trade shows, and whether that's for associations or media companies or the big organizers. So that's us. Today's panelists, we've got a great panel. So first of all, we've got Abby Cannons from RX. We've got Nick Westerman from NHS Confed, and we've got Rachel Stefan from Snowball. So I'm going to go around alphabetical by first name and just ask you to introduce yourself briefly. So Abby, what do you do and why should we listen to you talk about this topic?
That's a difficult question to start off with. My name's Abby, and yeah, so I work for RX Global, which is an exhibition organizer, a very big exhibition organizer. I work on the global innovation team there, so we look at new tech, find new tech, pilot new tech, anything to make events a bit better for our customers around the world. And previous to that, I was at Slido, which is a SaaS company for interaction at events. And before that, another organizer. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag of my experience from both vendor and organizer side.
Great, thank you. So yeah, lots of different perspectives that you can bring in from that experience. So moving on to Nick at NHS Confederation. What's your experience with in relation to this topic?
Thanks for the intro there, Joe. So I'm an event organizer primarily, working in the conference and events exhibition space. I've certainly kind of in the last 2 years fallen into the event technologist role in our team. And so I've kind of got my finger in a lot of pies for understanding what best platforms are out there for all the different things that we're working on. So I feel quite comfortable talking about this now, or as comfortable as anyone else in this pandemic situation.
Sure, yeah. Great, so thanks, Nick. So you're bringing primarily, I guess, the organizer perspective. And I know you've done a lot of evaluating different software platforms for events. So you've actually looked at this in a lot of depth in the past. So
I've seen them all of the grisly guts.
Great. And finally, last but definitely not least, I think probably winner of best hat. I'm feeling quite naked up here. So Rachel Stefan, snowballer in chief. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Rachel Stefan from Snowball Event Marketing. My background, I come from the agency side because I started also an event marketing agency 20 years ago. So I've used technology and multiple platforms in order to deliver what we need to do in terms of marketing events. And as of recently, a couple of years ago, we started Snowball, which is a platform itself, an event tech to help organizers tap into the power of their own community and their own audience to amplify and grow their attendance, their audiences, and all that. So we are listening and seeing the trend of the whole SaaS. Obviously, it's a dream for every tech company is to get into that, and also seeing from an organizer point of view what makes sense to them. So you kind of get both sides of the coin to see what works and what doesn't. And this whole panel is all about, is really finding out what works and why should we go there if we need to go there.
Yeah, great. So would it be fair to say you kind of started out much more on the organizer camp and then experienced a pain point or identified a need and then kind of started a company to address that need in Snowball?
Yeah, exactly. So for us, I mean, our sole focus is really marketing the events, getting the words out. And the way I like to say it is putting butts in seats and eyeballs on screens. So part of those strategies that we did and deployed to even get the people in, we saw a trend or like a successful strategy that usually involved people who are everybody's involved in the event to be also co-marketers with us and the organizer to help spread the word. So you're not the only one shouting out or talking about your event being the greatest and the best, but you kind of go into every single person who's part of the event. And I don't want to use the word influencer because everybody has
it's
influence.
A loaded term.
Yeah, it's a loaded term, but in essence, everybody has influence, even in the smallest little things. So if you have thousands of attendees and every person influenced one person to come and register, you just snowballed your event, basically.
Cool. Okay, thank you. So that's the panel. So we've got some a real breadth and depth of experience there, just in you three alone. So what's the topic we're talking about? So it's this, subscription and self-service software. So this question I think is really interesting. I was at IBTM World in Barcelona 2 years ago, and I was having a conversation with another founder about this question and saying, strategically, we'd love to get to a position where, we're offering like a subscription-based software where, users can have a look on the website. They find us by doing a quick search on Google. They come to the website. They think this looks great. They stick the credit card details in. They sign up, and we never hear from them because it's so easy to use our platform that basically we don't need any staff to to run this. It's completely scalable, and the customers can service their own needs. And this other founder just kind of went, "Yeah, good luck with that," because nobody does that in events. It just doesn't work. But there are examples of some software businesses in events who are doing it. So, and obviously some organizers are using self-service and subscription platforms as part of their tech stack. So that raises the question to me, like, when does it make sense to use these kind of subscription platforms, and when do you need much more of a kind of traditional B2B software solution? And possibly going beyond that, when would you actually want to bring it in-house? When do you need that much control of the platform? So that's really why we're exploring the question. Now, it was Halloween yesterday, so I think it might be appropriate to start with a horror story. And Nick, I know that you've got one about this. So could you open us up with your experience when you were with an in-house package?
Sure. So my time at University of Leeds a few years ago, they had a fully custom built piece of software that did the registration, it did the program management, it did everything else in between. And the chap that had built this over a kind of 15-year period was given voluntary redundancy. So with him went the knowledge of how this platform actually worked. And it was patch after patch after patch. And it was effectively creaking at the seams, which just didn't really serve it any purpose anymore. So the university said, right, okay, well, we will we'll look at how we can repurpose this, recode it, and get it back to where it needs to be. So that basically this could continue to be supported by the in-house team. And as they started touching this code, they realized that it was a language that most of their IT team didn't even understand or write it anymore. So they brought this guy back from redundancy on a ridiculous contract to get him to rewrite all of this software. And to be honest, it just did not work. And so what they had to do was reverse engineer how they were actually going to run their business processes, look at all the individual parts and say, right, this is registration. Can we find a provider that does that? This is the program function. Can we find a provider that does that? And then find ways of integrating their various things into one tech stack. It wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it was far more serviceable than having one guy as a single point of knowledge for the entire project.
Great. So what do you think is the kind of key lesson you can draw from that in terms of this question about, I've had a change of hat. So yeah, what's the key lesson, the key learning from this? Like basically, if you depend too much on in-house or one particular product and you've got a single point of failure, then you're exposing yourself to too much risk.
For me, it's don't overcomplicate what is potentially quite a simple thing. So registration is registration is registration. Yes, there are lots of providers out there that will do particular things for you and in particular ways, but ultimately you need data to go in, you need data to come out. If you've tried to create a path that's so specific to your, quite niche group of delegates, then of course you're going to come up against troubles because you won't find a provider, and you're going to have quite a blinkered approach to how you're going to achieve success effectively.
Interesting. So, Abby, I'm seeing you nodding there. Oh.
Yeah, I was nodding. Yeah, I think that to me that comes down to complexity of tools, and just as you were saying there, keeping it simple. And I think that vendors also need to understand that when a product is a SaaS product, then the simplicity has to be maintained, because if you're adding more and more features as you go along, an event planner doesn't have the time to learn every new part of that feature. And I think that's really important when you're making a decision as to whether or not to go for just software bought as a service or as a subscription versus something that's a bit more high touch. Is how complex is this? How much do you need to know? And how often is this product going to change? How much are you going to need to learn in the future?
Yeah, that's a great point. Rachel, you're going to say something.
Yeah, I think between Nick and Abby, you brought up a couple of points that are interesting. Is that the simplicity of it, but there's also how to play well with others, because there's something I think that is left not too much discussed, is the different stacks, different technologies that are needed to make something happen. So even if a registration needs to plug with something else, and then something else needs to plug with something else. So we don't talk about these things. Sometimes you go, let's say virtual event, you pick your platform, and then you get to discover that, oh, there's this that needs to play with this one needs to connect with this, and then you discover it as you go after the fact. And I think it's important to be transparent about what are the different pieces of technology that need to come into play to make this seamless and a little bit more easy for the organizer, especially now that there's a lot of new technology that came in, and the upskilling to get on understanding and be comfortable with the technology is quite steep at this moment. So is SaaS, I don't know about, it might be down the road a great way, but I think right now there's too much pressure on the organizer to learn and adopt new technology to kind of ride this pandemic and come out of it being more confident in running different events on technology, even the hybrid or the virtual and all that. So the simplicity, yes, but also like being transparent about the different plugins that need to come into play to make this all work seamlessly, because there's a lot behind the scene that we don't get to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think related to that, the complexity point and also the integration thing is, I guess it's like the learning curve, isn't it? That with a lot of self-service products, it kind of implies that actually the user's going to pick this up, they're going to study the documentation, they'll spend hours watching demo videos to understand how to use the product, and then they'll be, reading FAQs and all that kind of thing. But do event organizers have time to do that, or do they just need someone to use it at the end of a phone that can just pick up and say, why doesn't this happen when I press this button, which is what I expect? So how do you think that?
I'd like to add to that. Yeah, I'd like to add to that, which is, also as SaaS providers, where are they based? Where is your event going to be, and which time zone are they based in? Because, if you do need, they might have the best chat chat team, instant fix team available to mankind, but and womankind. But if they're in the wrong time zone and they're in bed when you're having your event, that's useless. So making sure that you're looking at where those vendors are based and how much support they can give, even on that basic level of I need help right now, and it's just a case of press this button.
Yeah, so it's I guess that's an argument for the SaaS, like for being very self-service and understanding the product yourself really well. If you don't need the support, it doesn't matter where the support team is based, or if it's a very high touch platform, you want it to have a kind of follow the sun support, so you get 24/7 support if you need it.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of time, I think that ETL did a session not long ago for the event tech founders, and the session was kind of about how to sell SaaS to organizers, I believe. And one of the trends or the things that came up in the poll that the presenter was showing was the big challenge is for the organizers to discover new technology, and the time that they need also, their time is very limited. So bring it back to the SaaS. Even though you're offering it for them for free, they still need the time. The time is not there for them to even do it. So in our case, I find, they get the chance to do it themselves, but yet they keep coming back to us and say, but we love that you do it for us because we can focus on something else. So that opportunity, the time factor is huge, especially right now for organizers, because that is money and they need all the help that they need to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, does that chime with your experience as an organizer, that sometimes you just want to say, I don't want to spend time learning this platform, I just want you to do it? Or what's your experience?
Yeah, but very much so. The past 2 years has been a really good example of that, because you might have started learning one platform and then you need to jump onto the next one, and then you're jumping onto the next one after that. And sometimes it is just so time consuming to learn all of these different platforms and all these ways of working that actually you really don't have time to do it. So you do need to be comfortable in handing that over to your provider and saying, you know what, I really do need you to help here. Conversely though, they don't have the time to fully understand your event. And so you've got to find that balance between, I'm comfortable, I'm happy, I know that you're going to do a good job for me, and actually, can I truly hand this over to you and expect you to do this when I know that I've got an intricate thing that happens within my event, and can I feel comfortable enough to hand this to you based on probably what's only been maybe a 30-minute, 1 hour conversation? And I think that's a very difficult balance to strike.
Yeah. Do you mind if I jump in again on that, which is that something that happens internally at RX, I was about to say Read Exhibitions, RX, rebrand, is that, you really need to have an ambassador who's going to be almost, we're a large scale organizer, and to have somebody who really does want to spend the time, loves the product and wants to get under the skin of it, and is willing to share with the other teammates that might be using the product any updates and things like that, and what might make their lives better. But also, as a central team, we do things like build playbooks on behalf of the vendors as well. So there's a playbook for Slido, there's a playbook for some other companies, I'm not going to name them all now, that has actually, as you say, this takes into account the specific type of events that we're running and is templated for that. So while your SaaS provider might say all you need to do is this, actually that it needs to be in the catalogue and on the signage and on the app and all of these things, which the SaaS provider doesn't tell you, but because you've done it once before. So building these internal, almost like knowledge bases for the product outside of the vendor can be really helpful.
Yeah, and so that'll be specific to your application of the software. Sorry, go on, Rachel.
No, this is gold. Did you ever share it back with the technology provider to use? Because you're creating the playbook and the use case of a real case. When the provider, usually if it's a tech company that doesn't have that background, they're building it from their own perspective. But what you're saying is gold.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes?
We sometimes, it depends what's in them. I think it depends what's in the playbook. When it's things like templates for emails and, you know, stuff like that, yeah, of course. If it's more strategic stuff, then we don't necessarily want all of our competitors doing the same. But yeah, I mean, some of it we do. We could probably share more, though. I think it's not something. I think because it sits on our internal systems, being a big corporate, you know, it's not so easily shared about. But yeah, it would be worth doing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got a question from Lee Matthew Jackson. It's quite a long question, so bear with me as I read it out. This is, I guess, to any of you who feel like you've got a perspective on it. Does this conversation assume that the SaaS product selected has a poor user interface or user experience? I think there are many great providers, many exhibiting here, that have created very easy to use platforms. Should the conversation be focused on what is spent? I guess that's financially. Example, cheap SaaS certainly can't provide 24/7 amazing support to an organizer. That's where a more premium SaaS would be the option, I think. So there's maybe a thing here about definitions of SaaS.
Well,
so
I'd argue that actually, sorry, Slido plug here, but you know, Slido does a freemium model, and even the free version has 24/7 chat support if you want it. And I would also argue that Slido is really simple to use. You don't need a manual. You just start using it, and that's it. You know, again, I think that does come down to the complexity of the product, like you say. You know, the more complex it is, the more touches you're going to want, the more support you might need. You know, I think that's where that's where that would come in.
Yeah, that's certainly challenged with our experience at Lineup Ninja. That I think we initially thought we were bringing a fairly simple product to the market, and as we were following the lean startup model, where you bring a minimum viable product to market, see how people respond to it, see where the feedback from the market takes you to find your product market fit. So we brought a fairly simple product initially, and then as we had more and more early clients, it became clear to us how different everyone's process is. So we had to build more and more complexity into the product to be able to service clients and actually give them real value. And so that's pushed our product to be much more complex, to the point where I think it'd be quite difficult for our product to now be a completely self-service platform, because there's just so much complexity to it and so much power in it. How does that, Rachel? Where does your product fit? Do you think it's straightforward, complex, and how are your clients interacting with it, and what are they asking for from you?
Yeah, I mean, we try to keep it simple as possible. That's the whole point of it, is simple. And it does one thing, but many in different ways. So it's about, you know, putting tools in the hands of your own community to help them spread out the world. And then we just focus on that. So we're not going to be adding, you know, making it too complex to be like too many options, too many features, too many things going on. We just want to focus on one thing and do it really well and easy. So the time investment, even though, like I mentioned earlier, I think even though it is easy in some cases, some clients, when they have too many things going on, especially when it's closer to the events too, they might revert back to us to help them with that support. And that's what comes back most of the time, is that the customer support makes or breaks any company, basically. And if you hear a lot of different stories, and you see it on social, and clients are vocal about certain things, and people are, use it out to communicate and talk among each other. So support is really crucial in this situation to help support, whether they're on the freemium or beginning, because this freemium client can turn into a paying client later on, or could be an advocate for someone else that come in that could also be a paying client. So you gotta treat everybody sort of equally and provide the support across the board in an equal manner. Provide value first of all before the technology. But yeah, I mean, it remains simple, and that's the whole point of it, is to keep it simple, and you're guided through a step 1, 2, 3, and then you're off running and going. Our goal, like when I present it as a demo, for example, it's 17 minutes to present, and we're trying to aim to have even the campaign being launched from beginning to end in 17 minutes. So you're like, wow. It's that easy. It's based on templates. You have formulas that work, don't work. You can just pick and customize and be up and running really quickly.
Well, I need to sharpen up my demo game. It's about an hour. So that's really interesting. And I think a reflection that's just come to me as you've been speaking is it's partly about the complexity of the product itself and the job it's trying to do. Like how complex is that? That's one side of the equation. But the other side is what's the makeup of your team as the event organizers, and how much capacity do you have to learn these products and engage with them? So if you've got a huge team and you've got, I can use the example of us because it's familiar to me. If they've got a dedicated speaker management person who's doing all that liaison with all the speakers, then and possibly for multiple shows, then it's worth them investing the time learning our product because they're going to get tons of value out of it. If you're a small team with one kind of main event manager who's basically a coordinator of loads of different areas, and essentially the software that they're automating a lot of the tasks that they have to manage, then they're going to want to outsource more of that management, and they're going to need more of the support from the vendor. So I guess it's partly that side of it as well. Are there other dynamics on the organizer side that you see that would affect this decision?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems on any of this actually comes down to the salespeople. And I know this is a very, very dangerous topic to start, given the conference we're at. But stick with me, which is that every event organizer has their particular way of doing things. They understand their product. They understand what they're trying to achieve. And in that demo, in that brief time that you've got with the person who is trying to sell you something, they've got to intrinsically understand what you're trying to achieve, and then say to you quite clearly, our product is going to do that, or isn't going to do that. And I think most of them will err on the side of course it can do that. And then you think, okay, fine, I'm comparing all of these things together. I've also got the price, and then I'll say, yep, I will appoint this person. And it actually doesn't then matter how good the UX or UI is, because even if it's super complicated, if it does what you need it to do, you're happy to understand it, you're happy to work with it. If it turns out that you've been sold a pup, then you're actually in really, really problematic waters, because you're now either having to retrofit your perfect process into what's quite frankly not fit for purpose, or you're having to relearn everything, and what you feel like you're doing is offering almost a lesser experience to your delegates as the end point, because it's no longer what you have expected to deliver. I think that's a real challenge here. So when I say that it starts with the salespeople, I really do mean it. They've got to understand, almost like a partnership with you, that if they're going to try and sell you something, be transparent. If it's a yes, it's a yes because it's true, not because they want your money.
Yeah, it's about expectations, isn't it? If you expect it to be, if you expect it to be a certain way, then you prepare for that. And if that isn't the case, now you're in the thick of planning your events, and by that point, it's too late to kind of go back in some cases. So, fully agree with you.
Have you had any technology being presented to you that they told you right off, no, this is not a good fit? Our product won't do this for you. Did you ever get that?
I'm asking. I've had that twice, and I've applauded their transparency, and I've also applauded the fact that they've bothered to keep in contact to say, let's keep the conversation going, because here are things on our roadmap that might get closer to what you're looking for. And so we've always stayed as a kind of relatively warm lead with them, because I valued that transparency so much that I'm willing to continue the conversation. Equally, I've had people who have sold me something that wasn't fit for purpose. We've signed the contract with them. We've even got to the point where we're delivering the event with them, and it went catastrophically wrong. And we were helpless almost as the organisers to do anything about it. But the whole point of that was it was a SaaS product.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Well, it's not a tricky one.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say that the sales teams are going to be under a lot of pressure to deliver sales and deliver targets, but it not only creates problems for the client, but it creates problems for their development teams as well if they start selling stuff that you can't actually deliver. So yeah, it's really problematic. We've got a few more questions that have come in.
Oh, good.
Abby, I don't want to cut you off. Did you want to make your point and then we'll go to the questions?
No, nothing that special.
All right, cool. So I think the first one was it was Lee Matthew Jackson finishing up or following up that point where he said, I guess we're assuming then that SaaS company, Slido in this case, or others, has huge financial backing, thus can pile high and sell cheap. This, though, means the smaller companies struggle to compete. They can only compete on service. But I think actually Slido were bootstrapped. So they
Yep.
in the early days, they never took any big investment. So they found the magic formula to do this.
Yeah, there was no investment. Yeah, I mean, I joined when it was tiny. I was number 23, I think, and it grew over the 2.5 years that I was there to 100 and I think it was about 120 when I left. So enormous growth. But it was based on the freemium model. You'd have people testing it out and using it for free, but then the people who wanted to export the data and stuff like that, which are a professional, or your professional organisers, they're willing to pay a bit more. It's still cheap, but I say cheap. It's not good value, let's say. But it's a case of it's very affordable, so lots of people would use it. That's my theory, anyway.
Yeah. I'm going to be asking for some commission off Slido for this session, I think.
Sorry, it wasn't meant to turn into a Slido.
So next
other
question,
engagement I think, providers do exist or whatever.
I think the next question might be a kind of a rhetorical question, possibly. How much value is there in a plug and play product when everyone wants to differentiate and have a competitive edge? So, and it is. I guess it is easier to differentiate on service when you're small because you can offer that really personal service, and you often are agile enough to be able to do special development work for clients and stuff. Next question: as an off-the-shelf platform, I would 100% agree with Joe. Yes, self-service can work. Nick, hopefully, will back me up from using ours. Who's this question from? It's from Luke at Venue IQ. Nick hopefully will back me up from using ours, but giving your client the option of the level of support to match their requirements budget, phone support, on-site support, even building a product, etc.
I'll absolutely go hell for leather on this one, which is Venue IQ are a fantastic product. The platform have been brilliant, but also the support we've received from them has been brilliant. I almost don't feel like they follow the SaaS model because their support is so good that you almost feel like it's been bespoke for you. And if there isn't something they can fix for you, they'll find a way around for it. No, I'm not on the payroll for Venue IQ. I should also actually add, as our session sponsor, Lineup Ninja, exactly the same experience. Absolutely fantastic platform, but backed up by, I think, probably some of the best support in the industry. Because I think that the thing we've benefited from with Lineup Ninja is that it is a full-on partnership. You're not just buying the software, and you're not even just buying the service. You're buying knowledge, passion, and enthusiasm from two people who really do want to understand your product, and then really want you to succeed. And there aren't many providers that are like that.
Stop it.
Fully agree.
Make me blush.
Can I actually add to that? Which is again, big up the Lineup Ninja. But the other thing that I think Lineup Ninja and others have done very well is to create, a community platform as well. Like so actually, there's a Slack group for Lineup Ninja, and if you've got a question, you can put it into a group. Everyone can see the answers that are given. You can ask questions there and so on. And I think that's a nice way of sort of saving some time, I guess, on this sort of 24/7 support. If you've got other users who can tell you how to do it, then great. That's half your battle. They're probably as likely to understand your issues as anyone else.
Yeah. I've got another comment here from Tamsin Treasure Jones over at Cubify, I think. So she says, personally, I also think salespeople should be involved in support as well. I completely agree with this. That way, they do get the insight into how events run and they understand the repercussions of overpromising. Yeah, totally. If you've got to take the heat for overpromising, then it makes you think twice about doing it in the future. Lots of people agreeing with that. Someone says Nick should get 1 month of Lineup Ninja for free.
I second that. Thank you very much.
Cool. So we've got about 4 minutes left. So I think Simon's going to be joining us in a second. Are there any kind of closing thoughts or any comments anyone wants to chuck in? Rachel, you've been quiet for a while, so I'm just going to put you on the spot. Any kind of final thoughts about this topic?
To be honest with you, the last minute or so was frozen for me, so it was very choppy. I couldn't hear much.
Oh.
But I heard something about the community on Slack and all that, but that's all I missed. I'll have to follow up on that to understand. But if I got it correctly, I think it's a great idea, because partnering, I think the word partnering with the client is really key here, and not so much offering the tech as is and just use it. It's more about collaborating together and making the product better fit for the client, but the client being open enough also to work with the technology and not expect it to be off the shelf perfect, but together making it what it needs to be for both as a win-win situation.
Great, thanks. Abby,
I did
Nick?
just have one more thing. I think we didn't cover, but I know that we kind of wanted to, which is that something worthy of note is that I think Joe, you made the point when we were doing our little planning call and whatever, is that some event planners are only doing one event a year, and it might be a big one, but what that means is that they're not getting used to the tech in the same way, and so if that's what, and you are only having an event per year, how are you keeping up to date with how the product has progressed in that time? And I think having the vendor having good communication with those clients and understanding those changing needs, but just I think it's just finding a method that works for those people, that doesn't mean that every 12 months they're having to learn a whole new set of features again is going to be good. Something that's a bit more piece by piece would be good. I don't have the answer for it, but I think it's worth noting anyway.
Yeah, that's a great point. Nick, any closing comments before we come back to Simon?
Yeah, just to say that I think both software as a service and self-service actually have to go hand in hand. Yes, there are the people that want full self-service, but realistically, they also want to learn from others. And that community part probably comes into that, but also the fact that they're going to need a bit of hand-holding at some point. So I think to view the whole thing as one piece probably would benefit everyone.
Great, thank you. Right, well, I think it's been a great discussion, really interesting, some great perspectives on it. I'm not sure there's a hard and fast answer or rule of thumb we can say is going to work for everyone, but it basically sounds like if the software is more complex and you've got less time to figure out how to use it and it's potentially higher risk, then go for more support, pay more to get better support. And if it's something that's actually fairly routine and you've got the capacity to learn it, then SaaS looks pretty like a good choice because it can save you money. Simon.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Joe there. And thank you very much to all our speakers for that session. Really, really interesting. I've been glued to every word. I think that has educated a lot of the people watching. I'd say that's probably the busiest chat session we've had for any of the sessions. So obviously gone down really well with the audience watching. And great to hear all the different perspectives of you guys, obviously from Nick as the actual event organizer to all you guys in the background as well. So as I say, thank you very much for all your input today. And who knew there was going to be so many hats at Event Tech Live? But there we go. We've had a hat off to round up day one. So thank you very much for bringing a little bit of mystery and a few surprises to the end of the day. So thank you very much, guys. And thank you very much for being a part of Event Tech Live 21.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys, and see you all soon. Okay, ladies and gents, that was our final session of day one. What a day it's been. We've had a lot of different subjects covered. Hope you have all enjoyed it. If you have, there's some people, I'll put my bucket hat on now. They're going to get involved in the hat scenario in the chat. It's all going on here. I say, if you have enjoyed today, do let us know in the chat. If you want to get involved on the social media, hashtag ETL21. We'd love to know what you thought of day one and where you are joining us from today. Don't forget, tomorrow we have a whole host more fantastic presentations and subjects to be covered, from podcast style sessions kicking off first thing in the morning. We've got the age of digital events, how to drive sponsorship through gamification, event monetization, and a lot more. We're going to go live tomorrow from 9:30. The main stage will be opening up at 10 a.m. So if you want to join us then, please feel free to do so. It'll be fantastic to have you join us. Also, don't forget, we are going to be live and in person down in London on Wednesday and Thursday this week. If you want to get involved with that, actually come along, reconnect with the event tech community. It'll be absolutely fantastic to see you there. But of course, if you can't join us, don't worry, because we will be live streaming it all as well. If you do want to get involved and actually come to the event, eventtechlive.com, just register yourself. You can do it for free if you wish, and it's got all our COVID guidelines there to make sure we are all safe and looking after each other actually at the live events. So ladies and gents, that does wrap things up for today. Thank you very much if you have stayed on all the way through. Hope you enjoyed day one. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we look forward to catching up with you all tomorrow morning. Have a great evening. Good night. Super.